In the summer of 1984, a suffocating wave of fear gripped the Tampa Bay area of Florida. Young women were vanishing from bus stops, parking lots, and quiet suburban streets in the middle of the night. There were no witnesses, no signs of struggle, and no immediate clues left behind. The local police department and the FBI were dealing with a ghost, a highly organized, calculating serial predator who moved through the shadows of the highway system with terrifying precision. The man hiding behind the steering wheel was Robert Joe Long, known locally as Bobby Joe. To his co-workers and neighbors, Long was a normal, quiet cinema technician who kept to himself. But beneath his ordinary exterior lay a dangerous, compulsive predator. Long spent his late-night hours driving a red monochrome Dodge neon-style station wagon, scanning the neon-lit roads for isolated, vulnerable targets. He was incredibly adept at using psychological manipulation to lure his victims close. Sometimes he would pull over and ask for directions. Other times, he would pose as a stranded motorist needing assistance. The moment a target stepped within arm's reach, the facade vanished instantly. He used brute physical force and the threat of a weapon to overpower them, dragging them into his vehicle before vanishing down the interstate. By the autumn of 1984, the body count in Tampa had risen to 8. The task force was under immense national pressure, running out of time and operating at a total dead end. The predator's pattern seemed entirely unbreakable. The critical fracture in Robert Joe Long's reign of terror occurred in the early morning hours of November 3, 1984. A 17-year-old girl named Lisa McVey was riding her bicycle home after finishing a late-night shift at a local donut shop. The streets were completely deserted, and the ambient highway noise was dead silent. As Lisa pedaled down an isolated stretch of road, Long's vehicle quietly pulled up from behind. Before she could even attempt to scream or flee, Long ambushed her on the asphalt, forcing her into the back seat of his car at gunpoint. He placed a thick blindfold over her eyes, completely plunging her into total darkness. Long drove her back to his apartment, intending for her to be his next final victim. But Long had severely underestimated his captive. Despite her young age, Lisa possessed an extraordinary, bulletproof survival instinct. Realizing that fighting back physically against an armed, unstable predator would seal her fate, she made a conscious, brilliant tactical decision. She would use extreme psychological compliance to keep herself alive, while systematically gathering forensic evidence with her other senses. Inside the apartment, while completely blindfolded, Lisa transformed herself into an undercover investigator. She consciously noted the internal environment. She counted the number of steps it took to walk from the bathroom to the bed. She memorized the distinct, rhythmic ticking of a specific household clock on the wall. When Long forced her into the bathroom, she carefully felt the unique textured tiling beneath her feet and noted the precise mechanism of the sink handles. More importantly, Lisa understood that she needed to leave physical evidence behind that could link the predator to the crime if she didn't survive. Whenever Long looked away, she intentionally pressed her fingertips firmly against the headboard, the bathroom mirrors, and the glass surfaces of the apartment, deliberately leaving clear, high-quality latent fingerprints behind. She began talking to Long not as a captor, but as a human being, using deep empathy to disarm his rage. She told him that she was completely alone in the world, that she understood his pain, and that she would promise to be his secret friend if he let her go. This profound psychological manipulation completely disoriented Long's violent impulses. For 26 grueling hours, Lisa maintained the act. Finally, completely manipulated by her compliance, Long drove her back out to an isolated road, removed her blindfold, and let her walk away alive, convinced she would never go to the authorities. The moment Long's car sped away into the night, Lisa ran to the nearest phone and dialed 911. When she arrived at the police station, the detectives were initially skeptical. The Tampa Bay task force had been dealing with brutal crime scenes for months, and they found it hard to believe that a serial killer had willingly released a witness. But the moment Lisa began speaking, the skepticism in the room turned into absolute awe. She provided the detectives with an incredibly precise, detailed forensic map of the predator's life. She described the exact dimensions of his apartment, the layout of his bathroom, the sound of his clock, and the specific path they took based on the number of turns and highway vibrations she felt through the floorboards. Furthermore, Lisa told them to look closely at her clothing. She remembered that the interior of the car was lined with an unusual, vibrant red carpeting. Forensic analysts immediately swarmed her wardrobe, vacuuming her clothes for trace evidence. Under the microscope, they discovered a massive deposit of unique trilobal red nylon carpet fibers. This microscopic thread matched the exact red fibers found on the previous 8 homicide victims. Lisa had just provided the task force with the definitive physical link they had been searching for all year. The predator now had a face, a vehicle profile, and a specific geographic radius. Armed with Lisa's incredibly detailed description of the car and the red interior, the FBI and local police launched a massive silent surveillance dragnet across Tampa. They reviewed thousands of registration records, looking for a matching red Dodge station wagon. On November 15, 1984, just 12 days after Lisa's abduction, an undercover surveillance unit spotted the vehicle cruising near a local shopping center. The driver matched the physical profile perfectly. It was Robert Joe Long. The task force moved in with absolute stealth. They followed Long to a local bank parking lot, blocking his car from the front and back with unmarked tactical vehicles. Officers swarmed the driver's side window with their weapons drawn, pulling Long out of the seat and slamming him against the hood in handcuffs. When forensic teams processed the vehicle, the interior was an exact match to Lisa's description, lined from front to back with the highly unique, vibrant red nylon carpeting. Investigators then marched Long into the interrogation room. When they confronted him with the mountain of precise evidence gathered by Lisa, including the matching fingerprints she had left on his apartment mirrors, Long realized his psychological game was completely over. He broke down and confessed to the abductions and murders of 8 women, ending the worst serial crisis in the history of Tampa Bay. The trial of Robert Joe Long brought an absolute, unyielding standard of justice to the state of Florida. Lisa McVey took the witness stand herself. Standing before the man who had held her captive, she delivered an unbreakable, devastating testimony that left the courtroom in complete silence. Her poise, clarity, and extraordinary intelligence completely dismantled the defense's arguments. Based on her testimony and the flawless forensic fiber matches, Long was found guilty on all counts. He was handed multiple life sentences alongside the death penalty, ensuring he would spend the rest of his natural existence securely behind maximum security steel bars until his execution on May 23, 2019. Lisa McVey refused to let her survival be defined by the actions of a predator. She took the trauma of her past and transformed it into a lifelong mission of public service. Inspired by the detective work that saved her life, she went to college, entered the police academy, and became a highly decorated law enforcement officer, specializing in child abuse investigations and sex offender tracking for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. She spent her career protecting the exact same community where she was once hunted, proving that the mind of a single survivor can completely break the chains of darkness and deliver ultimate justice to the world.